Picture this. I'm standing in my kitchen, coffee in one hand, a wrench in the other, staring at a duck. A real, quacking, pissed-off duck, waddling through 3 inches of swamp water that somehow flooded my back patio. It glares at me like I'm the one who ruined its morning. This wasn't just a bad day, this was the moment I realized my backyard, my sanctuary, had become a casualty of my HOA's latest obsession, a fancy pond that was never supposed to drown my life. My name's Ethan, and I live in a quiet little gated community just outside San Antonio, Texas, a place called Cedar Hills, where the lawns are perfect. And the HOA rules are stricter than a drill sergeant. I'm a drainage engineer by trade, spent years designing flood control systems for cities, so I know water, how it moves, where it goes when you don't respect it. My house is my pride, a modest ranch style with a workshop where I tinker with tools, a garden full of rosemary and tomatoes, and a backyard where I can sip a beer and forget the world. That piece ended when Linda, our HOA president, decided Cedar Hills needed a legacy water feature. She called it Harmony Pond, painted it as some eco-friendly dream, complete with koi fish and a waterfall that looked like it was ordered off a clearance rack. At the HOA meeting, she unveiled this sketch, looked like a toddler drew it with crayons, showing a giant pond next to the community clubhouse. Everyone clapped like it was genius. I raised my hand and asked one simple question. Where's the runoff going? Linda froze, shuffled her papers, and mumbled something about professional drainage plans before flashing a smile that said, "Sit down and shut up, Ethan." I pressed. "My place is downhill from the clubhouse. You sure this won't flood my yard?" She waved me off. "We've got experts, Ethan. Don't worry about it." Spoiler, I should have worried. Construction started a week later. Bulldozers tore up the green, dug a hole deep enough to hide a car, and lined it with cheap rocks and a plastic waterfall that screamed low budget. The first big rain hit a few days after they finished. And that's when I saw it, water spilling over the pond's edge, racing downhill, straight into my backyard. At first, it was just puddles. I moved my patio chairs, figured it'd dry out. But then the puddles turned into streams, the streams into rivers, and one morning, I stepped outside to find my garden underwater, my firewood floating, and my workshop floor a muddy mess. I waded through it, cursing, and that's when I saw the pipe, a shiny new PVC line sticking out of the HOA's fence, angled directly at my property. This wasn't nature. This was sabotage. I stormed to the HOA office, boots squelching, and found Linda sipping tea behind her desk, looking like she was auditioning for a yoga commercial. "Linda," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "your pond's flooding my yard. My workshop's ruined." She didn't even look up. "Ethan, water flows downhill. It's just geography. Maybe get a sump pump." I blinked. "You're saying it's my fault your pond's drowning my house?" She smiled, all teeth, and said, "Nature's unpredictable, Ethan. We can't control everything." I left before I said something I'd regret. I tried the city next, zoning, water management, anyone who'd listen. But the second they heard it was an HOA project, they backed off like it was a live grenade. "Private property issue," they said. "Sort it out with your board." The board? That was Linda and her fan club, nodding along to her every word. At the next HOA meeting, I brought photos of my flooded yard. But Linda cut me off with a gavel and a lecture about community spirit. She even showed a slideshow of ducks in the pond, like that made it okay. "Look at this biodiversity," she beamed. I wanted to scream, "Biodiversity's eating my basil." By then, my patience was gone. I bailed out my workshop 3 times, my garden was a swamp, and the smell, God. The smell was like wet socks and rotting leaves. Neighbors started noticing too. Sarah, who lived up the street, asked if my grass was dying. A kid across the way fell into a slimy puddle and came up looking like a swamp monster. But Linda? She just posted in the community forum about how vibrant the pond was, attaching a stock photo of a kid smiling by a lake. I was done playing nice. That's when I went full engineer mode. I pulled out my old drainage schematics for Cedar Hills, studied the slopes, the pipes, the flow rates. The pond was a disaster. No overflow basin, no filtration, just a hole that dumped water wherever it pleased. And that pipe pointed at my yard? It wasn't there in the original plans. I dug into HOA records and found a receipt for drainage enhancements paid to a company called Greenwave Landscaping. Guess who owned it? Linda's nephew, Brian. A guy whose last job was a kiddie pool that collapsed in a week. I called my buddy Marcus, a hydrology consultant for the state. He came over, took one look at the pipe, and said, "Ethan, this is no accident. They aimed this at you." We ran a dye test, pouring non-toxic blue tracer into the pond. 3 hours later, it showed up in my yard, glowing like a neon accusation. I got it all on video, drone footage, timestamps, the works. Then I heard about Linda's big plan, a grand pool party to celebrate the pond's success. Invitations were out, a band was booked, and the community pool was sparkling, ready for its close-up. That's when it hit me. If Linda thought my yard was her dumping ground, I'd send her water somewhere she couldn't ignore, the HOA's precious pool. I wasn't going to poison anything or break laws. I'd just let gravity and bad engineering do the talking. The pool's drainage system was simple: skimmer lines, overflow drains, and a backwash outlet tied to the storm line. The pond sat downhill, but with a little nudge. I could redirect its overflow straight into the pool's drains, overwhelming the filters with murky, algae-filled water. Marcus helped me dig a narrow trench under the HOA shrub line, hidden under mulch. We used a directional trencher to keep it clean, connecting the pond's overflow to a secondary storm drain near the pool. I added an old irrigation valve for control, so I could turn it on and off without leaving a trace. It was subtle, legal, and beautifully ironic. Linda wanted a pond? She'd get a pool to match. The forecast gave me the green light. A big storm rolling in from the Gulf, set to hit the night before her party. Linda sent out a smug group text, saying the rain would pass quickly and her state-of-the-art drainage would handle it. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. That night, as thunder rumbled, I slipped out to the trench at midnight, flashlight in hand. The pond was already swelling, water creeping over the edges. I turned the valve, and it started, a trickle at first, then a rush, as the pond's overflow surged through the trench, bypassing my yard and heading straight for the pool's drains. I went back inside, made some tea, and waited for the show. By sunrise, the pool was a disaster. I watched from my kitchen window as Linda's right-hand woman, Janet, showed up to set up for the party. Arms full of balloons. She stopped dead, jaw-dropping, as she saw the pool, once crystal blue, now a swampy green mess with cattails and algae clumps bobbing on the surface. She screamed, loud enough to wake the neighborhood, and dropped her balloons. My phone pinged with the live feed from my workshop camera, capturing every second, the murky water, the ducks splashing in like they owned the place, the stench rolling across the deck. Linda arrived in a sun hat and floral pants, her smile vanishing as she took in the scene. "What is this?" she shrieked, kicking a stray piece of driftwood. "This is sabotage." The HOA group chat exploded. Neighbors showed up, some gagging, others snapping photos. Sarah, the neighbor who'd asked about her grass, pulled out her phone and played my dye test video. Yep, I'd sent it anonymously to a few folks the night before. The crowd went quiet as the blue tracer lit up my yard on her screen. Linda's face turned the color of the pool. "That's manipulated," she snapped, but nobody was buying it. The band canceled. The caterer bailed, and by noon, the pool was taped off with hazmat signs after a city inspector showed up and called it a public health risk. I decided it was time to make an appearance. I strolled over, boots on, smile easy, carrying a folder stuffed with evidence, dye test footage, drainage maps, and that damning receipt for Brian's company, signed by Linda herself. She saw me and lunged forward, pointing. "You did this, Ethan. You ruined our pool." I kept my cool, handed her the folder, and said, "No, Linda, you flooded my yard first. I just helped your water find a better home." A few neighbors snickered. One guy clapped, slow and deliberate. Linda flipped through the papers, her hand shaking, her voice rising to a screech. "I'll see you for this." I shrugged. "Go ahead. I've already sent this to the city, the HOA's insurance, and a reporter who's real curious about your nephew's company." She froze, speechless for the first time since I'd known her. The fallout was swift. The city's environmental team launched a full investigation, and the pond was found to violate 4 codes: no permits, no overflow system, nothing. They filled it in a week later, turning it into a native plant garden. Linda was forced to resign, claiming family reasons. But the truth was all over the neighborhood forum. Her nephew's company got banned from state contracts. And the HO faced a civil complaint from me and a dozen other homeowners whose yards had taken a hit. The pool? Drained, scrubbed, resurfaced, at a cost that made the treasurer wince. But it wasn't just about the pond or the pool. Linda's reign had been built on bullying, fining people for stupid things like wrong mailbox colors or too many potted plants. She'd used the HOA like her personal kingdom, funneling money to her nephew and ignoring anyone who dared question her. The flood exposed it all, her shady deals, her fake eco-nonsense, her willingness to screw over neighbors to save her project. The neighborhood woke up. We started meeting without the board, pushing for reforms. Ed, a retired drainage inspector who'd lived here quietly for years, stepped up as interim president. He was no-nonsense, experienced, and, unlike Linda, actually listened. He even asked me to help redesign the community's drainage. No titles, no politics, just pipes and math. I said yes, but only if we could add one thing, a small stone by the new pool deck. Engraved with "Respect the flow." It's still there, a little nod to what went down, and it makes me smile every time I pass it. Linda's house went up for sale a month later. No fanfare, just a sign and a half-dead lawn. I heard she moved to her sister's place 2 counties over, probably hoping to start fresh where nobody knew about Harmony Pond. But the internet doesn't forget. Someone turned her old newsletter photo into a meme, captioned "Serenity Lake, from dream to disaster." It's got thousands of likes. My backyard's back to normal now. The garden's thriving, the workshop's dry, and the ducks are someone else's problem. The HOA is different too, less about control, more about community. People are planting wildflowers, putting up quirky lawn art, living a little freer. But sometimes, I wonder if I crossed a line. I didn't break any laws, didn't hurt anyone. But I played dirty to beat dirty. Was it justice, or just me settling a score? A few weeks after Linda left, I got a blank envelope in the mail. Inside was a note, no signature, just one line. "You think you won, but you're no better than me." I knew it was her. It stung, but only for a second. I've got my yard, my peace, and a neighborhood that's finally breathing again. That's worth more than her last word. So, what do you think? Was I right to give Linda a taste of her own medicine, or did I stoop to her level? Ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, or pulled off a quiet comeback of your own? Drop it in the comments. I'm dying to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this tale of pipes and payback, hit that like button and share it with someone who'd get a kick out of Linda's swampy defeat. Let's keep the neighborhood drama flowing.